Hi, everyone. My name is Vanessa Cruz. I'm with the Whole Kids Foundation, and I'm joined by the BCause, who you just heard from, and I'll let them introduce themselves now.
Hi, I'm Emily Ellingberg. I'm the Director of Educational Programs with the BCause.
And I'm Tammy Enright, the Executive Director and co-founder of the BCause. Welcome, everyone.
So let's cover some housekeeping. So today we're going to go through some frequently asked questions as well as accept some Q&A questions live. So please use that Q&A function. And this webinar will be recorded and sent in a follow-up email via Zoom. So today we're going to cover what the Garden Grant is, some eligibility, and then the frequently asked questions like I talked about earlier, the timeline for the application process, when we'll notify if you've received a grant, and some simple hacks, and then we'll accept live questions. So a little bit about the Garden Grant. I know we're here to talk about the Bee Grant, but we love that the Garden Grant complements the Bee Grant so well. So we definitely encourage y'all to apply to both. This is an opportunity to receive $3,000 to support an edible education garden. Schools and nonprofits can apply that are in the US and Canada. You must work with at least 10 children in grades K through 12. And you can check out our website if you have any more questions. And the application will open up in the spring around mid-February and close in March. So now I'm going to hand it over to Emily to talk about the Bee Grant eligibility.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Welcome back. If you were able to join us last time, that's great. And if not, no worries. That webinar is also recorded and saved on both websites at thebcause.org as well as wholekidsfoundation.org. Get it all out there. So just a quick reminder about eligibility. You must also be in the US or Canada, be a K-12 school or a nonprofit organization, work with at least 10 kids, and it must be used as an educational tool. And as always, if you're not sure, just reach out to us. I think the next slide. Yeah, if you're not sure if your program falls in that eligibility, please reach out. We get a lot of great questions just about different types of organizations, a great opportunity for us to learn about what you do as well. So please reach out to info@thebcause.org. So we're just going to dive right into some FAQs. Eligibility really is one of those that everybody just wants to make sure, especially before you spend the time and energy going down, the path of filling out the application. So just a couple of highlights. If you have a 501c3 and in Canada, I believe it's considered a registered charity. Then your answer is yes. If you have a fiscal sponsor, yes. If you're a private school, yes. If you're partnering with a business, yes. Youth programs, museums, camps, homeschool groups with 10 or more kids, yes. So please, again, email us if you are not sure. So this question is about who is the applicant, because in the past that's been a little bit of a question that people just want to make sure that they fully understand. So if you're the individual who is delivering this educational programming, then you are the Bee advocate as well as the applicant. So when you see the words Bee advocate, consider like if you're the one delivering the program, then that is you. If you're the individual who's hosting the bees, then you're also, again, the Bee advocate and the applicant. So think of it like you're adopting a pet. So if you went down and adopted a hive of bees, who's going to be responsible for that pet? And again, each program is different. So ask us. We'll be happy to help you figure that out. So this was just an example from past applicants to kind of give you a little bit more understanding of that. So we looked at an organization that was working with a school, but it was an extension agent. So if the extension agent person, if their job description is to be teaching the pollinator education for the duration of your job, you're going to manage the hive along with your bee mentor, and you're working with more than one school, then you are the applicant. However, if you are an extension agent that's working with a school, And the school is the one that is chartered to teach this public pollinator education or private pollinator education like year after year, and the school is managing the hive, and you might be working alongside them. Then the school becomes the applicant. So again, it can be a little you're not always sure, so please just reach out and we can help you figure out which entity is the one that truly is the applicant. Getting your bees approved. So I say step one starts with a passionate bee advocate, and that would be you in this case. So, you're going to be working with a reliable mentor, and if you still need help finding a mentor, please reach out. We can help point you in the right direction. But you are going to want to go into any conversation with all of the passion and all of the knowledge that you've received from these webinars and from reading all of our documents. Know your facts, be prepared to work with the school. You want to go in with preparation and be able to say yes and instead of, because they're going to possibly have a lot of like things that are concerns on the district side or on the school side. So just be prepared. We recommend that nonprofits consult with your admin or your board of directors, just so that you have the backing of those people who are also aware of all the different documentation that we have about what having the bees on campus means. That getting your bees approved document is it's within the grant overview. So if you're looking specifically for it, go to the bee grant overview on our website. And I believe it's also available on the Whole Kids website, and it is in that document, but it's called Getting Your Bees Approved. Safety, of course, everyone's concerned about safety. All of our grants come with proper signage. So you can see in this image, these kids are standing behind their hive, but apparently they have not put their bees in yet. But that sign is there just to indicate to anyone that's on your campus, to kids, to parents, to staff, like this is where our beehive is located. And, it gives information about, a safe distance. And placement on your campus is key. Obviously, you don't want to put it next to a door where kids or adults are frequently going through. The bees need a 10-foot easement. The bees are going to orient to their hive, and they're going to need a little bit of space for that. And again, not near frequently used doors. We also have the Bee Cost Safety Guide on our website. I highly recommend that you share that with families prior to your bees potentially being on your campus. Like once if you've gotten the bee grant, you're going to have a month or two before you have information. Oh, sorry, Vanessa, not yet. But you're going to have a little bit of time before the bees are on your campus. So I recommend that you share that with families so that they know that you as the school or the organization are prepared for the safety. So again, that document is on our website. And if you are a school that happens to have a nurse on staff, or if you're an organization that has identified one of your leaders that is going to be that point person for any kind of emergency, and typically you would have that anyway, you're going to want that person to be part of your bee team, because they're going to be the person that's going to have EpiPens if it's necessary, or they're going to have a plan if there's any safety issues that they need to handle. So again, that is on our website. I also want to point out that honeybees are extremely docile. And again, they're vegetarians. So they're not out looking necessarily to sting anyone, but educate your team about what honeybees are after. They're truly just looking for their resources, food and water, and you're not food or water. So we infrequently have any kind of safety things that are beyond what a school can handle. Can a homeschool group apply for the Bee Grant? Yes, homeschool associations can absolutely apply. Again, as long as you work with 10 or more kids and are registered as K-12, you will need an EIN number in the Smart Simple application to apply for that. What if I already have bees on campus? So this is kind of a double question. I have a second slide for this. So if you're the previous Whole Kids and Bee Cause grant recipients, then you're really looking for the renewal grant. And that is to improve your existing program. So that might be purchasing more bees, suits, smokers, hive curriculum, books. You might be working on creating a pollinator garden to support your bees. Your funds can be spent directly on bee programming, but again, cannot be spent on field trips, travel, or real estate. So if you are a past recipient, you are looking for the renewal grant when you're filling out your application. But if you received your hives from another source, you already have them on campus, then you are eligible still for the traditional bee grant to expand on your program. And that could be more equipment, more bees. Again, you could be creating a pollinator habitat to support your bees, but cannot be spent on field trips, travel, or real estate. Can this bee grant be used for mason or native bees? This specific grant is for honeybees, but at the Bee Cause Project, and I'm sure at Whole Kids, we absolutely love our natives, and we know that they have been evolving beside all of our native plants for thousands of years, and we need them as part of our very important food systems. But the Bee Cause does provide different types of programming for other bees throughout the year. And that does include habitat restoration, habitats, pollinator-friendly gardening projects. We have lots of resources on our website that are also native bee friendly. So follow us on social media. We're at the Bee Cause, and you can learn more also on our newsletter, which you can find out on our website. But we do a lot of other types of grants too to support our native bees, but this specific grant is for honeybees. Can funds be used to plant a garden or create an outdoor classroom? Yes. If you already have a functioning beehive on your location, then yes, you can spend your grant money on pollinator garden or educational materials, because we all know bees need food. And the Whole Kids Garden Grant is the perfect pairing with the Bee Grant, which Vanessa commented on. We love it when organizations receive both grants, because we know that your program's really going to thrive. I do recommend in your budgeting that you provide a full breakdown of how those funds will be spent. When we're applying to put a new hive on a campus, we're really familiar with all the parts and pieces that it takes to make that beehive come together. And if you're choosing to spend the funds on something that's different because you already have hives on campus, we would just ask that you really give us a good breakdown of what you're planning to spend it on. How does the observation hive work? This is one of our past recipients proudly standing next to her hive. It's such a neat concept, and it really is seeing is believing. So if you've not seen it before, I highly recommend that you scan this QR code, save it for after the webinar, and go and watch how it is attached to the wall. But so there is a hole that's drilled directly through the wall with a short tube that allows the bees to come and go to the outside. I believe in this case, her hive is on a second floor, which is great because then you don't have to consider the door situation down, as long as there's not a door directly below the hive. So the hive has 8 stacking frames. You can see 4 on the side that's facing us, and on the other side that's facing away from us, there'll be 4 more deep frames. It can be observed on both sides, and it does pivot, so it can be folded against the wall. And again, your bee advocate will work, or you as the bee advocate will work with your mentor to find the proper placement. And that's another, if you're not sure, you can always reach out and we can give information about that. And again, I highly recommend that if you go and see how it's attached, it will make a lot more sense. It can also be attached. The frame itself needs to be hung on something secure like the wall, but the tubing can go through a plexiglass window or another type of outlet. But if you're not sure, again, you can always send us a picture and we can give you our professional opinion on that. Where should I put my hive, my observation hive? It is best for the bees to be south or southeast facing, not in direct sunlight. So you don't want to create a greenhouse effect in your hive. water is one of the worst things that can happen to a beehive. So you're trying to avoid that condensation buildup and to get that greenhouse effect. Again, you want to have low traffic area on the outside of your building where the bees will have success getting back into their hive. You want your hive to be inside of a building that's temperature controlled on the inside. That helps the bees be able to survive through the seasons. Some people do have more success in different climates where the summer and the winter might be more harsh, to take the bees out of the observation hive and to do something maybe even off campus by hosting them in a Langstroth hive or a top bar hive until they can go back into the observation hive. The bees need a short walk from their observation hive to the out of doors. So consider that, like, how close you are to the outdoors. And this is another video. This is actually installing your bees into the observation hive, which is another really great video to watch, like how, and that's a great one to share with your beekeeper that's going to help you install your bees. How do I find a bee mentor? So local beekeeping associations are the best place to start if you just want to Google your local beekeeping association. Bee Culture actually does have it's kind of like a Rolodex of all of the different people in your community that are local beekeepers. So you can use that as a method. If there's a local beekeeping conference in your state, or if you're in a big city that has a conference, that's a really great way to get not only just one beekeeper, but to learn more about the different supplies that are out there and just make connections with other people. Your bee mentor can be a staff member if someone is already working with bees. And we always say that beekeepers are just natural educators. They want to teach, they want to help the younger generation learn about bees. So, and to help you on your journey. They're not just there for the bees, they're really there to help you, have success. So again, reach out to us if you need help. And what should I look for in a beekeeping mentor? So people ask a lot on emails that we get about paying your beekeeper. And of course, if they're part of their requirement, we want you, again, to have success. But we also recommend that you ask if someone is willing to volunteer that time. And their time is valuable. So I think it's a fine line that you have to walk and figure out where that person, could they maybe offer some volunteer hours, but you also pay them for some of their other things. So just things to consider. We ask that you find a trained beekeeper, or at least an experienced beekeeper, because not only will they have the passion, but they'll also have the experience of, how to treat for mites, how to make sure that pests aren't taking over your hive. Member of a local beekeeping association is a possibility, but not a requirement, just something that you could ask. It's almost like you're interviewing someone. Obviously, someone that has an interest in beekeeping education and willing to help you on your journey. The bee mentor role plus responsibility document is really helpful too, if you want to take a look at that as far as how to really find someone that will help you. And how often do they work with the bees? They will need to be available to help you install your bees, usually in the spring, which is why we send all grant recipients materials in February. When you're starting your hive, probably every 2 weeks, just to make sure everything gets established and that there's no unforeseen problems. And then once it's established, it might just be a monthly check-in. Of course, if you're going to harvest honey, then you're going to probably need them for that seasonal honey harvest. And anytime that you're recognizing there's, a potential issue with the hive, or if it's time to treat for mites or for pests, or you're going to want to contact your bee mentor to help you with that. So one of the questions that you'll fill out in your application is, would you like to participate in the Pay It Forward fundraising? And it's so easy. We try to make it as simple as possible for you. And it is a really great way for you to raise funds continuously throughout the year for your bees. So you order your honey on consignment through us. It's $15 per jar that you're selling it. Your program keeps a portion, they keep $5 for the jar. And then the Bee Cause Project gets the other portion of that to help create more bees for other organizations and to help them with their programming. You can order anytime throughout the year. And we recommend that before you order through us, read through the Pay It Forward document. It has a lot of great tips on how much in advance you should order your honey, some suggestions on doing it through the holidays or for Valentine's Day, anytime that you can give the gift of honey. And it's a beautiful jar that has our mission statement on it. It says that it is a private label honey through our friends at Savannah Bee Company that supports the Bee Cause Project. So you're not only giving the gift of honey if you're selling it like at that time of year where you're promoting it like gifts. It also, the jar itself is out teaching about what you're doing in your beekeeping journey and what we are doing in ours. Yeah, so how to handle spraying chemicals around the hives comes up a lot. So we would ask that you would potentially reach out to the technician who is spraying. A couple of questions or a couple of things you can suggest to them is to spray early morning or late afternoon when the bees are not out foraging. A granular application as opposed to a spray because there is less drift. You can always ask your technician to use an application that's non-toxic to pollinators, which you may need to do some research on and even come to that person with solutions as opposed to, just telling them no, that you don't want them to apply. You can also close your hive entrance the night before and then wait until after that application has been dried by the sun. So your bees are potentially in the hive and are, snuggled in for the night. And then when you're opening the hive the next day, that application has dried. And some organizations find that during heavy months of spraying, whether, it's for mosquitoes or if you're near a farm and they're spraying for different types of pests, that you can even relocate your bees during those high months of spraying. Again, this is a wonderful time and for you to take the opportunity to educate your team and potentially the person who is the technician that's spraying about other options. But these are just some of the ways that we have found best to get around spraying near the hives. So what comes with your indoor observation hive? It includes the hive body, which has a bottom entrance, and on the outside it comes with a landing porch. That video on how to install your hive will explain that and show you what that outdoor landing porch looks like. It comes with deep frames, as well as the mounting components for attaching the hive to the wall, a feeder that goes on the top of the hive, a beehive cover. And again, it'll have your signage, an outdoor metal sign and an indoor foam sign that just indicates what this is and what, kind of how to behave around it and how to interact without harming the bees, as well as your educator's box. A sample of the application. So everything that you'll need, yes, the answer to that is yes. If you go to either of our websites, you'll find the traditional bee grant or renewal bee grant PDF. So I recommend that you create a doc, either you're using a Google Doc or something where you can basically copy and paste the entire application in, fill out your pieces on the doc, and then when you're actually in Smart Simple, you can just highlight and cut and paste your answers in. That way you're not having to save frequently, it's being saved for you, and then you can always go back and look at what your answers potentially were. But all of the questions that you'll be asked are on either one of those docs. And again, they're available at both thebeecause.org or wholekidsfoundation.org. And who do you contact if you have issues along the way? So if you have any issues with the Smart Simple program, questions about your grant responsibilities or issues with your progress report, Grants at Whole Kids will be able to help you with those. If you have questions about bees, hives, program, curricular, beekeepers, bee mentors, questions about your educator's box, materials, lesson plans, then you're going to want to reach out to info@thebeecause.org, and we will get back to you as soon as we can with our very best answer. So timeline, we covered in our last webinar, but we just want to remind you, the grant application part 1 closes October 15th. So at that point, you're kind of in or out. And then the second part, which is the phase 2 of the grant application, that really gets into the meat of how you're going to use your grant, your budgeting piece, all of that is the phase 2. And it is, that window closes October 31st. You will be notified no later than December 7th. And that is if you will be receiving the grant, or if your grant is on hold. And everything gets mailed out February of 2024, just in time for you to get those spring bees ready to install in your hive. This is just a reminder that you can go to either of our websites to access the Smart Simple platform. If you go to the BCause, it'll just reroute you to Whole Kids Foundation. And again, you can use this QR code to go right to the application. So getting started, I think that's back to you, Vanessa.
Yeah, thank you, Emily.
Absolutely.
So I want to talk a little bit more about the actual process of applying for the grant, which is through the Whole Kids Foundation Smart Simple platform. So again, if you are a returning applicant, you're going to go ahead and just log in. And if you don't remember your information, you can use the forgot password option to restart your account. And if this still doesn't work and you're locked out, you can email us and we can do it from our end. So you have quite a few options to get you back into your account. So just reach out to us if you have like any additional issues. If you're a new applicant, you're going to do the register here option. And it's going to take you to a registration page where you'll fill out all of your information. And when it's complete, you're going to get this page where it says it's been complete, and you're going to get emailed your login information. So once you go back to your email, see your login information, you can return to this page where you can use this link to log in. So again, any questions related to the programming or questions about bees specifically, you're going to email info@thebcause.org. For technical questions within Smart Simple, you're going to email us at grants@Whole Kids Foundation. And if you're confused about who to email, we'll always reroute you. So don't be nervous. If you're not sure who to email, just email one of us, and we communicate all the time, and we'll forward your email if we're not the best people to answer it. So now we're going to open it up to some live questions. We've seen quite a few come through. I don't know, Tammy, if there's any that really stood out to you that you think the whole group should hear.
Yes. Yeah, we've gotten some great questions. One in particular that just sort of resonated with me was someone asked if the observation hive grant was the only grant that we offered. And I just wanted to highlight that this is the second webinar in the series for this bee grant. And we have been focusing on the most frequently asked questions that we've received over the last several weeks. But there was an initial webinar that we presented live 2 weeks ago that is now linked on both of our websites that discusses all of the different options for our live bee grant. And one would be the monetary grant. So you can apply for an observation hive grant, which is an equipment grant with a $500 stipend to help you kickstart your program. Or you can apply for a strictly monetary grant of $1,500 stipend, along with other educational support materials. So, so please go back and watch that first webinar if you are interested in a grant option other than the observation hive. We tend to have a lot of questions around observation hives because it is such a unique program, and we're the only organization that offers it on any sort of scale. So, so we're happy to answer those questions. It is a very cool program, but we do have another option for those who are not able to apply for the observation hive. Another question is someone asked, what if we already have bees but are not a previous Bee Cause or Whole Kids Foundation recipient? Can we still apply? And the answer is yes. Our traditional Beehive grant is meant to either create a program or to expand on a program that you already have. So as long as you have an intention of housing live honeybees, then you are absolutely a perfect candidate for this grant.
Can I add something to that, Tammy?
Sure.
Yeah, so in the Smart Simple portal too, when you try to apply for, say, the renewal grant, but you haven't been awarded a honeybee grant, you won't be able to even open an application. So that's another stop save that will keep you from applying for the wrong grant. But again, if you have any additional questions, always email us.
I also think this is a really great question because it can have a nuanced answer. Charlene Mello asked, our county beekeeping association is a 501c. Are we eligible to apply in collaboration with an agricultural high school? And this goes back to one of the FAQs that Emily just reviewed, because it isn't one size fits all. So even after I answer this, if you still have a question, please, reach out to info@thebeecause.org and we'll help you figure out exactly who the applicant should be. The answer is yes. We just want to make sure that the person who applies for the grant is the correct person, because the applicant is the one who ends up being the owner of the grant and is going to be responsible for the success, the tending to the grant, and the reapplication of future grants to make sure that that program is successful year over year. So we're just not typically, the grant resides with the folks at the high school. The applicant would be someone at the high school, and then the beekeeping association would simply be the bee mentor or the beekeeper. So you would have a beekeeper in an outside support organization, and you would have the bee advocate and or the applicant at the actual school where the bees reside, and that's where the programming takes place year over year. But there are always, ways to switch that around. So give us a call or send us an email if that does not answer your question, because sometimes it can be a little bit murky how to decide who's filling which role. Another question about outdoor access for an observation hive. We have a 10-inch thick wall made of insulated panels with drywall on the inside and plywood and hardy plank on the outside. Are we able to have an observation hive, or is the bee walk going to be too far or too long? The answer to that is yes. Most likely you will be able to still have an indoor observation hive. Most walls are about 10 inches thick, so you're sort of in good company there. We have most of our schools end up using an inside contractor. Sometimes they have to hire someone outside to use a 2-inch drill to drill through the wall to make that opening for the bees to come and go. If that is not possible for you, if the school does not want you to breach the envelope of the building, or if there's another reason that cannot happen, you may want to consider putting the beehive closer to a window and maybe replacing one of the glass panels with a plexiglass panel. We see that as being a very successful alternative for the installation. But if you have a specific question that goes beyond this, please let us know. We have probably 600 or 700 schools that have indoor observation hives now, and most of them have a little bit different situation, and we're happy to help you figure out what works best for you.
In our Q&A function, we got a request to show the indoor observation hive again. So since we're already on the topic, let's scroll back to look at it. And while we were also still on this topic, we got a question that I thought was really interesting. Are there different design options for the observation hive, or is there one standard option that you guys provide?
Yes, it's one standard option. It's one standard size. We have been working with a custom builder for almost 9 years now. And so we have iterations of this observation hive that we have created over the years to really make it the most conducive for what we are trying to do to make sure that the bees are happy and healthy in this environment. And I think that we've got a pretty good design. It's been pretty stable the last few years with no changes. Just at a high level, it's about 4 feet tall, about 2.5 inches wide. And it is on a pivoting structure, and the bees come in and out through that 2-inch tube that's at the bottom of the hive. The entire mount is about 6 feet tall. So those are just some high level dimensions. There is more information on our website under resources. You can look for a true blueprint of what the hive looks like while you are deciding where to pick the best spot for it.
And here's another question that came through too about the observation hive. Is there like a life expectancy or a year durability type that you consider with the observation hive?
So if we're talking about I guess I could look at this in 2 different ways. Are we talking about the equipment, the hive itself, or are we talking about the bees that are inside the hive, the program itself, or I'm sorry, the colony itself? The bees will be managed just as they would be in a traditional Langstroth hive or a top bar hive. They will build out that hive until it's full, and then you will either split the hive or they will swarm and go back to a smaller cluster and then build up again in the spring and summer. So that's like the natural progression of the colony, and your beekeeper will help you be able to manage the best way to make sure that your bees are happy in the observation hive. The equipment itself does require some maintenance over time. It has plexiglass on both sides. The bees like to put beeswax on the plexi, so sometimes the plexi will get cloudy. After a couple of years, you may want to replace that. Plexiglass cost about $80 to $90 for the 2 panels. So that's why we have the renewal grant that you can apply for. So you can replace that as to make sure that your equipment is in the best kept fashion. Every now and again, I've seen where people will want to restain their hive, or, we've been doing this for 10 years now. So people will even use a renewal grant or do a fundraiser by selling honey to completely switch out their hive after, 5+ years. But we are seeing, if you take care of them and you do your annual maintenance, just as you would a traditional Langstroth hive, it doesn't cost a lot to keep them in good working order for 5+ years.
Great. Thanks, Tammy. This is another interesting question about the observation hive. Is it more or less disposed to swarming?
That's a great question. It's the technical answer is it is most likely more apt to swarm, because bees tend to swarm as they fill whatever space they're in. And because you can't just add another box of 8 frames to the observation hive like you would be able to in a Langstroth hive, it is a finite amount of space. The bees will most likely swarm more often. We actually have a document on our website that talks about some of the best practices for managing your bees in an observation hive. And I would suggest looking through that, because some schools or some organizations don't want bees to swarm. And so you can be more proactive in managing that hive so that they don't feel like they're running out of room, and get that natural inclination to swarm.
And we have another question about observation hives. Does the installment have to be in an air-conditioned building?
It doesn't have to be in an air-conditioned building. It just needs to be in a mild, temperate environment. So if it's in a barn or in some sort of greenhouse or outdoor structure where it can get to be 120 degrees, or it can get super humid and moist, or if it can get 30 degrees. If you have these extreme temperatures, then the bees, because it's an observation hive and there are fewer bees, they don't have enough bees in the cluster to create enough heat or to create enough cooling scenarios to regulate extreme temperatures. So, we say it's best to be inside a building that is temperature controlled. But there are instances in different parts of the country where it would be fine to be in some sort of an outdoor structure that is not temperature controlled. And just one other comment on that, and in the document I just referenced around managing the observation hive, it is important to note that we do give you a $500 stipend with the observation hive, because many of our organizations or our grant recipients will end up purchasing a Langstroth hive at some point to put the bees in the off season. It's just easier to manage them over the summer for 3 months if the kids are not in school, or if you have extreme, winters and you do want the beekeeper to take them back to his or her property and manage them in the off season, maybe treat them for mites or whatever that treatment protocol is, where it might be a little bit more difficult to have them in the school for 12 months out of the year. So, I would say that environment and climate is definitely one of the components that you might want to have the conversation with your beekeeper as to whether you want to have the bees installed in an observation hive for all 12 months, or maybe for just a couple of months in maybe spring and summer, or spring and fall.
And I think this question relates to some of the information you just provided. So what does beehive maintenance look like if school is out or during the summer?
As part of the application process, you will have that question. It will say you need to think about what your off-cycle maintenance plan is. A lot of times, if beekeepers cannot have access to the building during the summer and there's not going to be anyone to keep an eye on the bees, then you may want to consider putting your bees off campus during the summer, for example. Or if you're not going to do any sort of study with the bees from November through January, maybe you take them and put them into an off-campus site or into a Langstroth hive and treat them for the fall and winter, and then bring them back in February or March when things start warming up again, so that you can do more teaching. So there are some guidelines and some best practices in our grant document that I suggest that you review. But if you have specific questions, this is why we're here. When you give us a grant, when we give you a grant and you become part of the BCause network, we are committed to making sure that you're successful and are open to having one-on-one consultations with you all throughout the years, because what is your situation today may be very different in 6, 12, or even 18 months from now. So we'll help you grow with your program and help your program grow with your organization.
Now we've gotten some more technical questions about actually applying. So one question came through: if the beehive is actually located at a library, but an extension will be teaching the bee curriculum, who should be the applicant. And I think Emily and Tammy went over this, but if one of you wants to review it again for the audience.
Emily, do you want to take that one?
Oh, yes, sorry, I was answering another question. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
Oh yeah, so if the beehive is located at a library, but an
Yeah.
extension group is teaching the curriculum, who should be the applicant?
I think that in this situation, you would want the library to be the applicant because, like Tammy said earlier in one of the other questions, like essentially, if that agent, like if that extension agent or if that organization that's teaching the curriculum, it like, you know, for some reason that changes, you know, that hive is still going to stay with the library. So the library is going to be the bee advocate. But I would highly recommend that the person who is teaching the curriculum work together with the library, whoever is in charge at the library, to kind of do that application almost together, because they're both agreeing that they're going to do X, Y, and Z. And you can also highlight that in your that question on, because there are questions that will prompt you to say, you know, how is this program going to be, you know, utilized? And so you can say that, you know, this organization is going to help this library with the content. But I would say the library would be the bee advocate.
Yeah, I think a good rule of thumb is the applying entity should be where the beehive is located, right? Like if the beehive is located at the school and you're getting outside help to teach the classes, you're going to apply in the name of the school because that's where the beehive will be located. And you may have different people coming in and out to teach the classes, but where are the bees? I think is really important.
I think the analogy of if you're going to adopt a pet, you know, who's going to be in charge of the pet if for some reason, you know, one of the organizations has to remove themselves. So who's gonna keep the pet? Who's gonna keep the bees?
I love that analogy, Emily. Someone is asking, can they get into Smart Simple to view the grant structure before actually committing to write? Yes, you can create an account in Smart Simple and then open an application to see what it looks like. But I would also strongly suggest just downloading one of the PDF applications available on wholekidsfoundation.org's website or the Bee Causes website at thebeecause.org to get an idea of what questions are going to be asked. If you are like a little wary about what's going to be asked or the length of it, go ahead and that's a really good place to start. And then once you do that, we suggest copy pasting the questions into a Word doc and answering it there, and then creating the application in Smart Simple to just copy paste your answers. That way, if anything technical glitches happen, your application answers are saved on a separate document. So it's kind of like a fail safe in that way. And then they asked if we could provide a link to the application. Again,
I can do that.
Oh,
I
yeah.
can do that right now. If you want to cover the other question that's still left in there, I will be happy to find that link and put it in the chat.
I'll also add the follow-up email to this Zoom webinar will include links to the PDF applications as well to our websites and a recording of this webinar. So don't stress, guys. We have tons of resources and tons of places these resources live. And again, if you have any additional questions, both of our organizations are really responsive to email. And then we have one question left in the Q&A, but please feel free to add more. I'm saying this to the audience. Someone's asking if they can apply for this grant to have a beehive on their private property. That's not, and that would be outside the scope of our eligibility. We are looking for applicants who are schools or nonprofits. And so the idea that a private individual could apply for this grant to host it on their property isn't within the frame of this grant. Emily and Tammy, if you have anything to add.
No, that's great.
Yep. Yeah. Can funding be used to support I assume a high school student over the summer in collaboration with a beekeeping association?
I think that would fall into what what Vanessa was just mentioning around, the program needs to be, one of the eligibility requirements is to have 10 plus students. And so this isn't really something for like an internship or to support a beekeeping association, although beekeeping associations do tend to offer grants to high school students. So if there is a high school student that who would like to do something beekeeping related, I would suggest that he or she reach out to the beekeeping association because they may have a grant that would be able to support those efforts. But this would be more if there were a school interested in having a full-time honeybee program. The high school student could absolutely apply on behalf of the school and lean on the beekeeping association to help manage the bee program. So that might be another way of looking at it, but the applicant would actually be the school, and the high school student would be applying on behalf of the school.
All right, excellent. The grant application states that we need a beekeeper. We have a couple of local beekeepers. Do they have to agree to be our advocate before we apply? Yes, so in the application, you will be asked who your beekeeping mentor is. And so yes, you will need to have a person or have identified a person, but that doesn't mean that you couldn't use multiple people to support you. We just ask that you have someone that's willing to make a commitment to you so that if, I mean, heaven forbid something terrible come up for that person, but you want to have a person that is like your go-to, no matter what. And then again, if that person wasn't available, we, would obviously want you to reach out to anyone in your community that's willing to support you. But yes, the application itself does require that you list a bee mentor.
I'll also add to that, Emily. When we look at applications, we consider a strong application one that shows diverse support. So different people are involved in creating the application and supporting the program, because to us, that means this program isn't going to fall if one person kind of drops off or changes schools or leaves an organization. There are multiple points of contact for us to reach out to keep this program going. So I hope that helps too.
I think that's great. That's a great point.
I feel like some questions we get, at least in the grants inbox, is, are people allowed to join the Pay It Forward program if they're not a grant recipient?
Yes. Absolutely. Really, you can use the Pay It Forward program in many ways, and we recommend that you start by reading through what our document on the website, just to kind of get a better understanding of what you're going to be doing and how it's going to work. But yes, you absolutely can use the Pay It Forward program even if you've not received the grant.
Something else I think that we see every now and then is there like a restriction about who the primary contact can be? Like, can a high school student apply on behalf of their school and kind of be the bee advocate? Or does it have to be a teacher or someone that's a staff member of an organization?
Yeah, I think the high school, we've seen some really amazing applications over the years that have been written by high school students, and even middle schoolers. So we think that's awesome, and we encourage you to have the students write the grant. With that said, there's so many things that need to be approved at the school level or at the nonprofit level by either a board or the executive team or whatnot. So we require that there be some sort of signature by an adult who has authority at the school or nonprofit that's requesting or applying for the grant.
Sorry, go ahead, Vanessa.
No, I was going to say we definitely love to see youth led programming. It's just really neat to see young people really excited about pollinators. And so I think at the Bee Cause, I'm sure you guys can reiterate that it's just exciting to read an application that's so clearly done by like a passionate student who's trying to get all these people involved and working on. So definitely encourage your students to apply if they're passionate about pollinators.
All right. Any further questions out there? Again, if you feel like we haven't answered your question, or given you enough details to answer your question, please reach out and ask us via info@thebeecause.org or grants@wholekidsfoundation.org. Sometimes when you're online and you're trying to answer a question and trying to get as much information to people as possible, we might not answer all the unique details of your question. But if you email us, we can definitely take the time to go through what specific points you need addressed. So please reach out.
Yeah. We're getting close to time here. So I want to say thank you to everyone who joined this webinar. And as a reminder, a recording will be sent out with additional links to our resources that we talked about today.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day, guys.
All right.